Welcome to TransformHer, the show where we ignite audacity and break barriers, equipping African women with tangible resources and practical insights for their journey to the C-suite or in entrepreneurship. Today, we'll be discussing Leading the Change, women-led businesses shaping social impact. And we'll be speaking to a truly influential leader in the third sector. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. Today's episode is titled Leading the Change, Women-Led Businesses Shaping Social Impact. And we are speaking to a truly visionary leader, one who has revolutionized the face of the non-profit sector in Nigeria and beyond, Ms. Alile.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
Welcome to TransformHer.
Thank you very much.
Osai is a truly transformational woman in the third sector. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the ACT Foundation. She's also the founding curator of the Global Shapers Forum, Nigeria. Wow. Osai, your CV is intimidating. And I was just saying before we came on set that it's remarkable when I was researching this episode to find that the third sector, what you do, when people hear not-for-profit, they just assume, not-for-profit. So, but you are a true catalyst. And what I like, for change, that is, and what I like is that the projects you've led have really been meaningful and impactful. But I want you to take us on the journey. What were those pivotal moments that led you to choose a third sector career path?
Okay, thank you for having me here. For me, it wasn't something that I understood at the beginning. I kind of found the third sector by mistake. It wasn't. I didn't know one person that had done it. That I was like, oh, I want to be like this person. So I started my life in banking. So I went to do my master's, thinking to myself, I'll come back and go back to the banking sector. And then that didn't work out. I started volunteering, and then I realized that people do have a career in this, but I just still did not understand it. And of course, when you tell your parents, then I want to work in non-profits, especially when you're coming back into Nigeria, their minds are thinking, how are you going to survive? How are you going to eat? Is it a career? Who is doing it? But I just knew in my heart that this was where I was supposed to be. But I couldn't pick up. There was nothing tangible for me at that time. But I knew also that I wanted to succeed. From very beginning, I kept on saying, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it well. I have to do it so that at the end of the day, I don't feel to myself I've missed out on some things, So that's really how it started. I just started working towards it, and I started looking for people that had actually dabbled in the system before. Right. And then I found a few people that were I think at that time we're just about 4 or 5 of us, that had come back and went into that career space. Right. And, I just started building from there. So it's been a very interesting journey, but I'm growing in it. I still feel that I'm not where I'm supposed to be yet. Wow. I'm learning, I'm relearning and unlearning a lot of things, but it's been an amazing journey.
You have run some amazing projects. And I know that for social impact, collaboration is key.
Oh, yes.
I'd like for you to talk us through some of these phenomenal collaborations, how it started. This is for women who want to go into your sector or even give part of their business to. So please tell us about it.
Collaboration and partnerships, for me, that's the only way, because, with this particular, where I run now, we work with 1,200 communities across Africa.
Wow.
So we work with about 120 organizations that work with us in collaborating across Nigeria and a few other African countries. So, when we started off, there's no way you can do this by yourself. We're doing health, we're doing environment, leadership, and enterprise. And, I also don't know everything. I understand it, but I go into some communities sometimes, and when they start telling me what the issues are, I know for a certain that that's not my strength. So I need to find someone that can go into the community that is their strength. And so for us, we just knew that we couldn't go in and implement. So who do we work with? Who is implementing? Where are they? I know the third sector and what people call NGOs or non-profit social sector, people have always looked down on the sector because they feel to themselves that I would tell people that they're like the step cousins. People just say, oh, what do you people do? So from the beginning, I said to myself, I will go into anything and people will not think I'm coming to always beg. I'm always asking for money. It's who I am, is what I do. But I come almost ready for, you will actually have to look at me and say, are you sure you need it? Because I just refuse to be looked down on because it's a career. We're doing great work. But I also, in mixing that also, I see it as a business. It's a business of doing good. And if you don't sustain the business, and that's where partnerships and collaborations come into play, if you don't sustain the business, it's going to fall apart. It's not sustainable in the long term. So I know the expenses, I know the income, I know it's run like a business. I'm audited every year by one of the auditing companies, and I do make sure it's done in the best way possible. So when you do collaborations, when you partner, you must realize that it takes you further. Because if I was going to do this on my own, I wouldn't have been in all these countries. It's almost impossible. And then also, once you collaborate, you're also learning and you're teaching. You're learning from the other organization. You're also teaching them your value system, what you do well, what is excellence to you. And then you're also picking from them and refining and then moving forward as well. So in doing that, I feel that's really the only option. And a lot of people, when they want to start social enterprises, because it's a passion that they feel, they always think to themselves, I must do this by myself. And then you want to name it after your father or your uncle or your auntie or even yourself. And in doing that, you find out that a lot of Africans will not want to collaborate with you anymore because if you can name it Osaya, Alile and Co, why should I also follow you? Let me go and do something else. Only a few people will say, I don't really mind. It doesn't matter to me. But in thinking through, any woman leader that is thinking through this process, they must realize that partnership is the most important thing. You must find a way of doing it. You must do it well. And you must come together and say, what is in need for me and what value do I bring to the table as well?
Wow. One thing that's most remarkable about this very inspirational woman, it's funny that I'm saying this right in front of her, is that almost 20 years ago, while Osai was at Faith Foundation, she invited me as a young lawyer to come and speak to people about how to incorporate their companies. So it is something that has stayed with her. Point number 2, women. If you set out to do something, stay the course. The social impact, or let's call it the third sector, is not an easy one, but she has stayed the course. She has won many awards, which are well-deserved, I must tell you. We don't have time. I would have read her bio for you. Osai, you have battle scars. You have battle scars. Even from speaking to you. Some women come on this show. I'm in awe of every woman that comes, but I know that you know from so many years that I've admired you greatly as a person, just even because of what you exude. But you have battle scars. And what we try to do on this show is say to the women, show us your battle scars. For the women who are coming behind you, who want to do what it is you do. How have you, what are some of them and how did you navigate the waters?
Gosh, battle scars. But let me come from this point and I'll talk about, I think for me, earlier in my life, I realized that battle scars were necessary. That if you want to achieve, you must have those scars. And I kind of prepared myself for it. But even then, there's still some scars that, have taken me a while to heal from. It's challenges will always be there. You must face it. So let me give you one. I think the perception of how they see the sector is something that we are continuously fighting. I remember when I first came into the sector and we'll go to meetings and people will say, don't you have a husband or a father? Tell them to support you now. They should pay for it. Then maybe they find out the name and they'll say, you can find someone to just pay for this. And I remember it used to almost eat at me. And then I almost wanted to stop going. Because I would say, why would people see this is my job? It's my passion, it's my life. It's not about anybody else but me. So I had to overcome that and say to myself, it doesn't really matter. And now they say it, I just laugh and say, well, it doesn't matter. Let them do, they've done their own, you do your own, so you find a way of changing things and turning things around. Another thing, one of the issues I have had that is still, it resonates with me. I had a season when we had one of the plane crashes. I had a few of my staff on those planes. Those are things that you don't get over, because they went to work, they went to do good, and they didn't come back. So those are scars that, as human beings, even anyone will feel. And I still see their family till today. It's things I see, and I feel the pain because I know how many years ago it was. I can see one of them's kids, and I think to myself, oh, I wish they were around to be here. But life is like, it happens. This is life. And we go through life, and there are things, and I've lost staff, I've lost people, I've dealt with things, I've had, I remember one time we got this humongous grant, international, and I was so excited. I went to the board. It took me almost 2 years to get this money. And then my board said, return it.
What?
Yeah.
Return it?
Return it.
Why?
Because they felt to themselves that the community that we had gotten it for, I'd already started talk to them, and they wanted a certain percentage. It was just a government, and very, very, very interesting conversation, but I'll leave it. So I went back and spoke to my board, and they said, you need to return that money, because we're not going to use it, because if this happens, it's not who we are. The ethics of it doesn't make sense. And I was like, no, we can make the ethics make sense.
We can make it work.
We can make it work.
Wow.
And it's one of those things, even till today, I look back and I say to myself, oh gosh, it was very painful. It was painful to my being, painful to my staff, painful to even for me, I felt to myself that the community that we're going to needed it. But I think we're going to lose a bit of our soul to make this work. And they just refuse to let that happen. But you see, even in that, the other side of the coin is that it enables you to understand where leadership comes into play, where it's great to have leaders that can tell you yes and no. And I learned it the hard way, but those are scars that you don't forget about very easily, because you could have taken the organization to a level that would have transcended how we see the non-profit sector across Africa, because it was a humongous grant. But these things do occur. You learn from it, you build, you get up from the trenches of how you see things, and you dust yourself and say, okay, what next? How do I move forward? Yeah.
Trust me, you don't look like what you've been through.
You never do, really.
Yeah.
You never do.
But another mark of leadership, ladies, is soul. I read in a very, very great and timeless book, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? And this is what our great lady leader has just said about how her board said, return the money. Another scar, she's lost people on her team, and she's faced with the challenge of still seeing their family members, some of them children. And so, ladies, this is truly a story for the books, that these battles will come and they will leave scars, but it is not about, it's really about how you pick yourself up again and keep going. You used a word just now, and that's what a lot of people don't know the meaning of what that word is. A lot of people have abused what, that word is, or what the actual use of a grant. So when people hear grants, they imagine grant, granted. Yes. I'm giving it to you, do as you will. Free money. Let's talk about grants, Osai. In the third sector.
Definitely not free money. I mean, you account for every single couple dollar cents that you get.
I don't want you to go on. We have to really unpack that. So we're going to go on break. When we come back, Zai is going to tell you the meaning of grant. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. We were just speaking with Lady Osai Alile before we went on break, and she was educating us on the fact that grants are not free money, or is not. Please, over to you.
It's not free money. It's accounted for because these are people's investments. So when an organization gives you some of their money, it's investments from someone else. People have invested into it, like a bank will give you their money. These are shareholders' money. They just agree that a certain percentage of it will be spent on doing good, on social impact and stuff like that. So you have to account for every single kobo. And sometimes I tell people that even if you don't spend everything, you still have to account for it and say, we have 2 million left and this is what we want to do with it. But when people say, I collected a grant and why should I go back and tell them, oh, I didn't spend everything, but it's mine. It's not yours. It's not yours to keep at all. You always have to go back and say, I spent it for A, B, C, and D. And with that brings about trust, because the organization begins to trust you. They can always give you more because they believe that you're going to spend it for exactly what you said you're going to do it for. So, with our people, like my grantees, I always tell them that even if things change, come back to us. So the new way of doing things in terms of social impact is about understanding what trust is. It's really building a spirit of trust between us and the grantees, because it's a value-based relationship. I want you to help me to do something and you're looking for me to give you some money to do it.
Yes.
But I need you and you need me. So it's always a two-way. There's nobody that is king over anyone. It's a relationship that we must come to the table together, agree, and then work. So grants are not free. Grants must be accounted for to the last penny.
This is instructive. Again, the word comes up, trust. It is a relationship that you are building. And once trust is eroded, there is no relationship. I want to ask very quickly, I have one more question, but how do you measure returns? So you say, for instance, somebody might have invested and say, use some of it to do good, make impact. And so how do you measure returns?
So my return on investment, really, I feel, is the changes that we see. So you must measure. You must evaluate. A lot of people do programs, but they're not evaluated, they're not measured. So it's not saying that the number of people that have trained, no. The number of people that have been impacted by the training. So we go back to the homes, we check things, we know their health, is it better? Can they do things better? So it's very, very calculated, and we do a lot of, measurements in the first year, and then we go after the 5th year as well. So we don't leave you alone and just say, so all those things also build trust with your partners, because they know that you know where these people are. They know that you can measure the value you have brought to a community or to a country as a whole. And so that's where the SDGs come into play as well. So when you are measuring, we know that we're measuring not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of impact. Impact is key.
Truly remarkable.
Yes, impact is key.
And so my final question, how will a business ensure that it remains sustainable while trying to create positive social impact?
I think I will come from the part of the first thing of focus. You must know what you're doing first. A lot of times something happens and, give an example. Your father passes, my father has passed, so I can use that. Your father passes and he passed from cancer. So you just want to go and start a foundation in cancer because your father died. But that might not be your focus. That might not be what you're passionate about doing. So you're just doing this thing, and then at the end of the day, maybe you do it in the first year when he's passed, the second year, by the third year, you lose all interest. You're losing interest because this is not a sustainable business. It's not a sustainable enterprise. You did it because of that feeling, that emotion for that minute. So, but if you are passionate about it, you're focused on it, you find out that that's the first tick. The second one really is that you must know the business. I tell people that you cannot do something and not know it. There's no passion I have and I want to invest in that I do not understand. I understand it. If it's cancer, I understand it. If it's women issues, I understand it. I know the business of why I want to run it. That helps you in sustaining that business. Then the second thing is you must know that you don't know everything. And I think I've mentioned that before. Then find people that can work with you in helping you to achieve your goals. Social impact is a business, but it's a business of doing good. You must understand it. You must bring people in that also understand it. That's why a Ford Foundation has lasted over 100 years. But we just do it because something has happened and we're emotional about it. Once you do that and you build that foundation that has everything that is placed on it, then it can be sustainable. It can outlive you, outlive your generations unborn. But don't go in with just emotions, because emotions will fall by the wayside. When the business, almost the thunder and everything of the business comes, it will fall. It will fall because you get tired.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always very, very frustrated. It's because you go and you feel that you're doing something, and then you go back the next year, measure, and the problem is worse. I tell people I come with everything, my whole hair, everything is sorted out. But when I go into the trenches of the community and I see how, you get so overwhelmed by all that is going on. So if you don't have a passion, if you don't have the foundational in place, you will find out that house will fall. It will fall. So those extra things give you the ability to continue to do.
Right.
And that's why people say, how has your career sustained over 20 something years? It's because I don't go in there with just the emotions. I want it to work. I go in there understanding the business. I understand it. I tick all the boxes, and I will not start a project when I know that it's not going to succeed. No matter how desperate I feel that the people are, it must succeed. I must be able to see the impact. I must be able to go back and say, we've done well. Mm. If we've not done well, what's the point of doing this in the first place? Mm.
When a woman is powerful, you feel it. I could have Lady Alile here the whole day. Wow. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Whew, ladies, you heard it. Number one, know the business of your passion and do not move based on emotions. Work with a team. You don't know it all. Not one man, not one single man is repository of all knowledge. Social impact is a business of doing good, and we admire women like Osai Alile, who are truly altruistic in their mission to make impact, measurable impact. You heard her. She does not move if she has not measured, gauged, and seen that indeed it will succeed. And she stays the course. That's another thing. Stay the course. It takes time. It takes grit. But as I was discussing with her before we started the show, it's the most fulfilling life, doing impact, the business of doing good. Please stay tuned for our coaching segment. Welcome to today's coaching segment on TransformHer. Yes, we're still on the topic of timeliness as an excellent attribute for a great leader. And we're still talking about tardiness and leadership. So let me give you an example of a tardy leader. When leaders are consistently late, it sets a precedence as acceptable behavior within an organization. It gives room to a lack of accountability. What you are saying to the rest of your team or to the rest of the organization and to your external stakeholders is that you are not accountable and you do not care about time. Remember what we said when we began to discuss this topic of timeliness, that time is truly the only currency you have to exchange as a leader. And so how do we address tardiness? Because it truly is an issue, particularly in the African setting. Although I must confess as a coach that the organizations I work with, we are actually getting better because we've become more mindful. The first thing we need to do is ensure that we have a feedback mechanism where we are able to feedback to each other on our performance, particularly as regards punctuality and the habits that will make us a very effective organization. The next thing, leaders, is that there must be consequences. You must have policies, you must have laws that govern these sorts of behaviors in your organizations. And when people fall short, they must face the consequences. And it must start with leadership. Leaders must be accountable. Cultivating a healthy organizational culture means that we must do two things. One, we want to focus on respect and we want to encourage open communication. Now, let me focus on communication. Communication is only effective when it achieves that which we set for it to achieve. So you communicate and the other party comprehends. So remember, leaders, it is not always what you say, but how you say it. But a healthy culture within an organization is one that gives room for open communication, meaning it's a two-way street. And so because we say it's open communication does not mean that we condone rudeness or that anyone can just say anything to their peer, to their leader, or, to people that they supervise. So it's very important that we note that it's not just what we say, but how we deliver what it is we're trying to say. So in conclusion, we have seen that tardiness is at the root cause of most toxic organizational cultures. And it is something that we want to check. It's also a reflection of deeper issues within an organization. Action steps. By addressing tardiness and cultivating a culture of punctuality, organizations can promote a healthier and more productive work environment. It seems like a small thing if you are late by 5 minutes. But what begins to happen is we push on to 10, 15, 30, and then a whole hour. Remember that there must be consequences for our actions to ensure that we have a healthy working environment and excellent leadership. Until next time, thank you very much for joining me.